On this month's In the Life, a new brand of superheroes. From comic books
I think the mask and the pot of blue outfit are fantastic.
to Brooklyn
I refuse to keep quiet.
to the South Pole
If we did get hurt here, it would be very hard to get rescued.
and soldiers in a hidden war.
Gay soldiers aren't going to go complain about how they're being treated.
All this and more on America's gay and lesbian news magazine, In the Life.
In the Life is funded in part by the H. Van Ameringen Foundation. Additional support provided by the Ford Foundation, the Gill Foundation, the Pride Foundation, the Mel Heifetz Fund at the Gay and Lesbian Foundation of South Florida, Daniel H. Renberg and Eugene Kavalowski, and the annual support of In the Life members like you.
Welcome to In the Life. I'm Bill Brochtrup. In the LGBT community, many of our common experiences leave us with war stories. Almost everybody has one, a scar from a battle we did not choose to fight. We fought for our safety, our civil rights, our existence. For the most part, we've survived. And our strategies for survival have even changed the terms of the battle. Tonight on In the Life, war stories. 100-year-old hero's proudest memory.
Joining the lesbians.
Children of the Revolution.
Our friends still make fun of gay people. We're we don't feel comfortable telling them.
And the incredibly true adventures of two girls in love.
But I again kissed her as a friend.
Was it?
Well, it wasn't in depth.
Comic books create a landscape where we can play out real-life crises and anxieties with the safe remove of fantasy, where our fears and problems can be solved by superheroes who wage mythic wars to protect ordinary lives. Even, in a new generation of comics, the ordinary lives of gays and lesbians.
If you think about all the superheroes, just click them off one by one. With the exception of Wonder Woman, with the exception of one woman in there, these are all white guys. White, heterosexual guys in tights who beat people up.
Gay and lesbian comics readers coped with finding representations of themselves in comics the way they cope with finding representations in pop culture. If there were characters they even vaguely suspected of being queer, they went for them.
Most of the characters that are superheroes, they're an outcast because they're not the normal person. So I think a lot of people, gay, transgender, would relate to that and go, gee, that's kind of like me.
I didn't really talk about being gay myself until the very late 70s when I was asked to edit Gay Comics, a new series that would invite gay and lesbian cartoonists to do stories about their life. Someone always has to be the first to take these steps. And in a sense, the cartoonists who appeared in Gay Comics were the ones who gave heart to a later generation.
In the 70s and 80s, underground publications were the only comics to represent gays and lesbians, in part because of a Senate investigation into comic books in 1954. The debate had centered around the sexual ambiguity of superheroes like Batman and Robin and Wonder Woman. Afraid of government regulations, the industry created the Comics Code Authority to oversee comic book content. The code's ban on depicting same-sex relationships was not repealed until 1989.
It wasn't McCarthyism literally because it wasn't about communism, but it might as well have been. It was part of that whole 50s, we're scared of these forces in society and we've got to keep it under control.
According to gayleague.com, an internet fan site, there are now over 130 LGBT comic book characters. In 1987, Extraño from DC's The New Guardian series became the first gay superhero. And in 1992, Marvel's North Star from the Canadian X-Men series came out as well. DC's cast now includes out lesbian cop Maggie Sawyer, transgendered Lord Fanny from The Invisibles, and Apollo and Midnighter. The ranks are growing, but some believe there is more progress to be made.
I think that there's a tendency in mainstream comics to play it safe when dealing with gay characters. It's well-intentioned, of course, but I think it leaves you with very one-dimensional characters and very one-dimensional themes in the story.
Go in with a ruler on the blue pencil for this line, but then do what you did over here.
For some editors, just having LGBT characters wasn't enough. Bob Schreck, an openly bisexual editor of the Green Lantern series at DC Comics, was so moved by the tragic death of Matthew Shepard that his idea for a gay character evolved into something more complex. The Green Lantern is a superhero, but by day he's Kyle Rayner, a magazine cartoonist. Terry Berg, Kyle's young assistant, struggles with his sexual orientation, but eventually comes out. In Green Lantern number 154, Terry falls victim to gay bashing. Terry's boyfriend David describes the incident.
I think I might have been holding Terry's arm. Then I kissed him. Somebody started whistling at us. We ran as hard as we could. I never would have had us split up if I thought they would just keep going. They went after him.
Terry is beaten into a coma, which enrages Kyle, and the Green Lantern goes after revenge.
This is the very first time gay bashing has been addressed. And again, that's why we talked to Kathy Renna at GLAAD.
So I basically, talked with him, met with him, offered him some resources, gave him some books.
Cartoonist Judd Winnick, a former cast member of MTV's The Real World San Francisco, joined the project as a writer. On the Real World set, Winnick met Pedro Zamora, a 22-year-old AIDS activist who helped open his eyes to LGBT-related issues.
We just wanted to actually create a very simple, positive image of a gay young person. Our readers who aren't gay would see, well, Green Lantern doesn't have any problem with the fact that he's gay, and that's pretty cool. And gay teens could also look at it that it's pretty cool Green Lantern doesn't have a problem with gay kids.
In one panel, Green Lantern resolved the nature-nurture argument. You're not gay, he says to this young boy, because you want to be gay. You're gay because you were born that way. Well, forgive me, but isn't that something that's being debated?
DC Comics and Marvel Comics, the two largest publishing houses, are competitors in many ways. Some argue Marvel tends more toward camp with their gay and lesbian characters, while they view DC as more earnest.
DC Comics, for example, and its imprints have a long history of doing a really great job of having diverse LGBT characters, as well as having, ongoing storylines and, less than superficial representations.
In February 2003, Marvel's universe did open up to include a gay title character. Senior editor Axel Alonso reinvented and re-released the 50s classic, The Rawhide Kid.
He was the slightly immature, lovable red-headed scamp who would ride into town and save the day. One day, while pouring through the old volumes, I looked at the Rawhide Kid and thought, wait a minute, a little bit tidy, isn't he? He's damn good looking. His horse is mighty good looking too. He's gay.
Well, my goodness, what an imposing bunch of young men I've got visiting me while I'm practically naked. Let me get my robe.
There'll be a lot of people who'll dismiss this project because they're homophobic. But I also know, and I'm in fact braced for, the people who'll come out with accusations of homophobia, that he's too cliche.
What about the Lone Ranger?
I think the mask and the pot of blue outfit are fantastic. I can certainly see why that Indian follows him around.
The re-release of The Rawhide Kid garnered media attention similar to that surrounding the Green Lantern, and it also produced controversy. On one hand, the Rawhide Kid is a self-determined, classic Western hero who knows how to fight the bad guys. On the other hand, he never outwardly defines his sexuality, which is revealed through innuendo and encoded behavior. The characters and storylines are more explicitly out in the Green Lantern, which has been mostly hailed by the LGBT community.
We, of course, heard from the vocal minority, and when I mean minority, I mean like this much. And you could have written the letters beforehand, the response to Terry Berg. What are they saying? This is an inappropriate storyline for young people. I don't buy comics to read this kind of crap. On the flip side, the response has been phenomenal. We're hearing from gay and lesbian adults who are saying that they wish they could have read this when they were a kid.
We received a lot of letters and a lot of emails, and several of them brought me to tears. The one that really got me opened up, "Dear Editor, 12 years ago, I was gay bashed in Jersey City. And it went on to detail how the police were very biased against him. And then there's a line in there where he says, and that's when I decided to become a costumed hero. He's a sergeant, I believe, in the San Francisco Police Department.
I just hope that the folks who pick it up are not just gay people. I hope the folks who pick it up are people who may live in a place where there's potential for a hate crime to happen, and it gives them a better understanding of what our lives are like as gay and lesbian people.
Like comic book superheroes, ordinary gays and lesbians have also tapped into extraordinary power in our own real lives. When Ruth Ellis turned 100, filmmaker Yvonne Welbon documented the life of this African-American lesbian who lived the civil rights struggles of the 20th century, at times when it was widely unsafe to be black, let alone gay. But first, the out lesbian who carried the dreams of elementary schools around the country with her to the South Pole.
On November 13th, 2000, Ann Bancroft and expedition partner Lee Arneson set out to break a world record as the first women to cross Antarctica on foot. The two women used skis, cleats, and sails to make their way across this forbidding and foreign landscape. They pulled sleds that weighed 250 pounds full of food and equipment and endured temperatures as low as 30 degrees below zero, with winds gusting up to 100 miles per hour. They made history, and 1,717 miles later, Ann and Lee shot this remarkable video footage themselves.
An extraordinary day was Christmas Day, and we had been hoping to sail. It was snowing on and off, which is very unusual in Antarctica, and so it was very hard to distinguish what was ground and what was sky. It was, enshrouding us. The wind picked up in the afternoon, and we got so excited that we packed up everything within 40 minutes, and then the sun came out and burst through some of that white. And it was magic. In 97 days, we saw so much variety. Most people think it's a blue, white, boring, flat place. But we travel on glaciers. The plateau is different than the glaciers. The construction of the snow or the makeup of the snow and ice is different every day. The lighting is so astounding. It's changing during the day. And when that lighting changes in such an enormous place, when you're this little speck, it changes your whole surroundings.
Some days were extraordinarily difficult. Their fingers and noses were numb from frostbite, and the terrain was often treacherous.
When we started the trip and we were going up the glacier, and the snow was quite deep, and our sleds were 267 pounds, and I'm weighing in at 130. It was hard. And you think, how am I going to do this? You have these moments of, what I call the heart thumpers, and you realize that you're extremely isolated. So, we got into very difficult areas, and we, would come back and we'd say, yeah, if we did get hurt here, it would be very hard to get rescued. I mean, you recognize those kinds of things.
This was Ann and Lee's first expedition together. These two women, one lesbian and one straight, grew up on separate continents, but they shared a childhood dream of growing up to be explorers.
Day 74.
Dang.
8th day, the 8th day without wind.
And we pull.
Oh, we have been pulling, it's hard.
I think it took me only a day or two that I really felt that we were sister spirits or sister souls, because we had this kind of common experience from we were kids. I was reading the same books in Oslo like Ann did in St. Paul.
We just got to know each other 2.5 years ago, and Liv wrote me in 1993. I had just returned from Antarctica. She was about to embark on a solo expedition, very similar route to the one we had just completed, and was interested in knowing about wind direction, et cetera, for a variety of reasons. Just, you talk to everybody you can before you go. And I knew I wanted to return to this remarkable continent. So I sort of stuffed her number away, and I thought, I need to meet this woman.
Well, I didn't know that Ann was a lesbian before I actually came into her house, and Pam. And I met Pam. And but by then I had met her, I talked to her, and we had exchanged mail or letters. So I had a positive feeling, and to me it was more important that she had a good relationship with her partner than that she actually was a lesbian, because going on an expedition like that is kind of can affect the expedition if the person you go with has a bad relationship. She has a good sense of humor, and it's fun to be with her. And some days was really depressing. The wind did not come, and we had to work hard to pull the sledges. And we said to ourselves that today I'm depressed. So we put up the video camera and put up our mouth harps and made some jokes.
We don't talk a lot on these journeys. We've got face masks on, the wind is blowing, we're in single file. You're exhausted. They're not elements that are conducive to conversation anyway. And it's a long, long journey, so I always say that we have lots of friends that we climb and kayak with and do outdoor endeavors that are very skilled, but they're very clear that they don't have the personality to go on a 100-day expedition. And we do. We revel in the fact that we will have this time away. It feels like a privilege to us. And in fact, the time went very fast.
Preparing for a trip like this is grueling work. In addition to securing endorsements, getting supplies, and testing equipment, there is the physical aspect of the training, which takes each woman up to 6 hours a day. In the warmer months, when there's no snow on the ground, Ann runs for 2 to 4 hours, dragging tires to simulate the weight of her sled. She strengthens and tones by chopping all of the wood she uses to heat her house, and by canoeing in a nearby river. As former school teachers, both Bancroft and Arneson are dedicated to using their adventures to inspire young people, and girls especially, to follow their dreams. They are working in partnership with schools and educators to bring the lessons of their journeys to a global classroom through the internet.
I used to be an elementary school teacher and a high school coach. In '85, when I was chosen to go on an expedition to the North Pole, I took a sabbatical, and that sabbatical has extended to now. So I never returned to the formal classroom, in part because I realized that I could do these expeditions and still be a teacher. My classroom would just be a bit broader and have more flexibility. My kids would be not just my 30 kids. They would be classrooms all over the country, and then now in a global setting. We communicated through a satellite phone. Every day we would give a report, which then went on the website, utilizing our voices.
It is day 30, the 13th of December. We woke to 18 below.
I mean, it's just phenomenal, the way in which we could be so remote and still feel very intimate with our audience and have such a large audience. This has been a life process, and concretely, it's been 11 years in planning the Traverse, so I have needed positive voices, whether it's coming from my partner Pam, whether it's coming from what I call my inner circle of really good friends that knows me, and sometimes it comes from kids, because kids are still so optimistic. They don't look at me as a woman or somebody that they perceive as small. They're just like, that's a cool adventure, go. And I can get energized by that.
Hi, I'm Jewelle Gomez, and you're watching In the Life.
When was the last time you had sex?
Oh, I guess I was about 95.
Ruth is like us. She's a person that has lived, as she says, an ordinary life. And to me, she's had a few extraordinary moments.
My name is Ruth Sharon Ellis, and I was born July the 23rd, 1899, in Springfield, Illinois.
The first time I ever saw Ruth Ellis, she was dancing. I was at the National Women's Music Festival in Bloomington, Indiana, and I was trying to figure out how old she was. And the next day I found out she was 97. I was really surprised at her age and her vitality.
That's how I met people, dancing. I'd go up and ask them, may I have this dance? And they said, sure.
The more I talked to her, the more I realized that there was an amazing history in her. The biggest challenge was trying to figure out how to tell her story.
I was in high school when the armistice was signed. That was a big day. Oh, 5 and 10 cent store, they sold out of tin pans and things. Oh, we had quite a day.
I made a decision to edit it historically. So we started at the beginning of the century and we just kind of go through her life and kind of make it a social history documentary.
Martin Luther King made a way for the black people to have more privileges than they've had. The greatest thing I ever attended was when they had the march here in Detroit.
You come in and you think you're going to hear this story about a black lesbian, but what you end up hearing is an American history story as lived by a black lesbian.
I wasn't in what you call a closet. Never. I didn't have anybody to... Now, my mother died early in life, so I didn't have to worry about that. But my dad and I had 3 brothers. I never heard anything from them concerning me, except one night. My girlfriend and I made a little bit too much noise. My dad told me, next time you girls make that much noise, I'm going to put you out.
Ruth Ellis witnessed many cases of discrimination and homophobia. So, together with her lover Babe, they opened their home to the disenfranchised. And soon the place became known as the gay spot throughout the Midwest.
It was sort of a haven for the young people who didn't have any place to go. Mostly it would be men. Boys would come in, and we'd let them stay there until they'd get on their feet. If they get a job, something like that, or maybe they wanted to go to school.
In Detroit, they're actually building a gay and lesbian center for teenagers who are street teens who are gay and lesbian, and they're naming it the Ruth Ellis House in her honor.
What was your greatest accomplishment?
Joining the lesbians.
One of the things that Ruth says has changed for her the most is that she is more out. She's out and she's proud. She's very out in her building. If anybody ever makes a homophobic comment, she goes, you know, when you're talking about them, you're talking about me.
Did you want to see the old gym?
I want to see the old gym.
Okay, we're not too far from there, so.
My favorite moment in the documentary is when Ruth Ellis returns to Springfield and visits her high school and takes one last run around the gym. Every time I see that, it still kind of brings a little tear to my eye. Meeting Ruth Ellis changed my life in a number of ways. I count her now as one of my friends. The main thing that has happened is I've kind of taken on some of Ruth's life philosophy. She doesn't let little things bother her. Which is great because I think you live longer, right? If you just don't get stressed out over the little things. Inhale,
And what other secrets of longevity did the filmmaker learn?
She does stuff like she always drinks 32 ounces of water every day. And, you know, I mean, she has these basic things that she does.
Get on this old bike and go town.
One of the things that I think that keeps Ruth so vibrant and energetic is that she exercises all the time. Ruth couldn't believe that so many people were interested in little old her. Ruth has received hundreds of emails because of this movie. And one of the most amazing was a woman said, I'm white, I'm heterosexual, I'm 6'1", because, you know, Ruth is 4'8", okay? And you would think that we are opposites, but we're not. And in seeing your story, I'm seeing myself.
The fact that Ruth is a lesbian, has been around and out for over her lifespan is really phenomenal. I think she was really a pioneer in a lot of ways.
May I present Dr. Ruth Ellis.
The reason I called it Living with Pride is that she has always been true to herself. She's never been ashamed of who she is. She's always lived her life with pride. And I think if she can do it, we can do it.
Going back to our history, according to my grandpa, we were being constantly raided by the Comanches and Apaches and Navajos. There was a major battle that was very challenging. Basically, no one was willing to step forward to lead the battle. out of nowhere, two men individuals, appeared in the pueblo. The elders sensed that these individuals would be the persons to save our village, and they took on the challenge to lead the pueblo warriors to battle, and we were successful in that. We now know that these individuals were gay men. Good fortune brought them to our pueblo.
Still to come on In the Life, when Connie kissed Ruthie.
It wasn't this movie kiss that you see tongues hanging around either.
Conduct unbecoming.
It is very difficult for service members to have to live a lie every single day while they're serving.
And Harvey salutes the unknown soldier.
Are we in the military? Yeah, we're there. Trust me, we're there.
Sometimes just insisting on living everyday lives with our families can spark remarkable changes and remarkable stories. When two Jewish women in Brooklyn fell in love, their fight for their relationship made them into accidental activists. And children of lesbians and gays everywhere are slowly forcing the world to become a safer place for their families.
We have 6 children together, ages from 20 on down to 6. 4 of them are biologically mine, 2 are biologically Sitara's. We brought everybody together, not to say that it hasn't had its ups and downs. The Brady Bunch.
Yeah, so how's your yearbook project going?
Pretty good. Well, I have 2 moms. It's a normal thing. Not eating with my hands, Mother.
Not really, so how are you?
I've been living with them for 10 years, you know. I mean, it's like I'm kind of used to it.
I think the only time it becomes an issue is when it's someone else's problem.
Unfortunately, for the millions of kids growing up in the U.S. with a lesbian or gay parent, it is often someone else's problem.
My friends call my mom names and I don't like it. Our friends still make fun of gay people. We don't feel comfortable telling them.
We just kind of combine our 2 moms into one, because sometimes we're talking about one mom, sometimes talking about another one.
Being a child of a gay or lesbian or bisexual transgender parent is very similar, I think, to growing up as a gay person, in that you unconsciously are learning all of these defenses and you don't even know it's happening. When you're walking with your 2 dads and you see kids from your school coming, you step away from them, wanting to just kind of edit your life a little bit or not be embarrassed.
There was this one girl in my elementary school that I had considered a friend. I told her that my parents were gay, and later on that week she said to me, my mom told me that if your parents are gay, then you're gonna be gay, and I don't want to be your friend anymore.
To counteract the taunts, stigma, and isolation, 6 young adults with lesbian or gay parents came together in 1990 to form COLAGE, which is headquartered in San Francisco.
Our mission is to serve any daughter or son or person with a lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender, or questioning parent. COLAGE is here so that all of the children who are growing up can feel like they have a home of people who understand their experiences and share their experiences of their family background.
Well, COLAGE stands for Children of Lesbian and Gay Environments or something like that. I don't know what the E stands for.
We have 30 chapters around the country and about 30 prospective chapters in the pipeline. We have all kinds of stuff on our website and discussion groups and support groups and pen pal programs and newsletters led by young people for young people. We get between 5,000 and 10,000 calls and emails and letters every year. There are still people who call here all the time who are so glad to hear about us because they never ever knew that there was one other person in the whole world who had a gay parent. They thought they were the only one.
We're just parenting a kid like hundreds of thousands of other parents across the country are just parenting their kids, you know? And when we go to COLAGE, that's what it feels like. It's just normal.
Of all the muck and discrimination and general ignorance and misinformation that's out there, you can sort of boil it down to about 3 points for kids who have queer parents. That our parents sexually abuse us, that because our parents are lesbian, gay, bisexual, or transgendered, we will be as well, and that we will be socially stigmatized to a degree that we will not be able to function normally in society. All the social science studies that have been done on us to date show that we grow up to be fine. But I do believe that having to grow up in a world that is unsupportive of our families and our culture and our lives hurts us.
Your lunch is made and it's in here. Okay. When Gabriel first went to school, there was name calling. He was just in kindergarten and he was barely 5 years old, and a second grade boy called him gay because he was in the bathroom with his best friend. My reaction was to become an activist, and we immediately met with the principal. We organized a workshop for the teachers. We did a parent education night at the school.
Schools need to have a zero tolerance policy for slurs. One of the biggest things that I hear from kids is that they hear fag and dyke all the time. And every time they hear it, it's like a wound. It's just so painful. And it goes completely unchecked.
We just felt that we wanted our kids to have a sense of pride in their families and to just have it be kind of normalized. I mean, we have African American Heritage Month and Cinco de Mayo, and we wanted an event.
It's an amazing thing when you think about a public school having a gay pride assembly.
A lot of schools do cultural celebrations around different identity groups. You know, there are also great ways to do different pride celebrations.
We really wanted it to be an affirming, positive event, and I think that it has been.
When gay families are brought together, they often discover they have similar challenges and ways to support each other.
One of the things that was most fulfilling for me coming to COLAGE was meeting other people whose dads had either died from AIDS or who were HIV positive, because my dad is HIV positive, and it was something that I was, of course, in great pain around.
Brianna was adopted by my late partner, Kevin. She was just over a year old when Kevin and I met, and we started living together as a family. And then Kevin got very sick with HIV. Brianna was, right by my side and Kevin's side throughout his whole disease process. Brianna was 5 when Kevin died. About a year after that, I met Greg. It's certainly colored that aspect of her childhood, but it also was an opportunity for her to experience the depth of love that she had for Kevin and his love for her, and how much incredible joy he received from her presence by his side. I mean, it was amazing to watch. And I know that has enabled her to be as open and loving and trusting with people as she is.
When I ask a child, what have you learned from growing up in a lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender home? What they say is, I have learned to be a stronger person from dealing with difference. I have learned to have a greater sense of empathy and a larger commitment to social justice for all people because of the discrimination that I have faced in my own life. They're growing up into these incredibly vibrant, fascinating, interesting, strong, compassionate people who are going off to their own schools and their own careers and starting their own families and spreading all of that change. I mean, I think it's incredible. And I think in 20 years or 40 years, we're going to see an America that's totally different because of that.
In 1973,
Thanks largely to the efforts of straight ally Dr. Evelyn Hooker, the American Psychiatric Association struck homosexuality from its list of mental illnesses, a monumental victory for the gay and lesbian community. I'm Judith Light, and you're watching In the Life.
Ruthie and Connie, Every Room in the House is a film about two women, Jewish women who grew up in Brooklyn in the 60s and got married in the 60s. And they did all the right thing that they were brought up to do and had children and became best friends. But when they were around 40 years old, Ruthie realized that she'd fallen in love with Connie. Oops, this wasn't part of what was planned. And she asked her to kiss her. I love the idea that they started out with this very ordinary life, and then something really unusual happened, and it totally changed their life completely. You know, as a director, you can't ask for better characters.
How would the school system allow someone who is an open lesbian to teach young people?
I have, and I could say this, I have saved more children's lives and given them opportunities that they never would have had if they didn't meet me, their lesbian, Jewish, left-handed guidance counselor.
They were always activists. So of course, when when they discovered that they were lesbians, that became, a cause for them. And then when they realized that Connie couldn't be covered by Ruthie's pension and welfare from the Board of Education, they sued, with two other couples, they sued the Board of Education and won. And of course, this was a landmark case because it was the cornerstone for the domestic partnership.
You are telling them to shut up. Now this, yes, you are.
Nobody's gonna shut me up because silence equals death. I just think you better go and find out why I upset you so much because I make love to her.
We feel live and let live, that's fine. My question is...
No, you don't think live and let live.
For the men.
The laws are against me. We can't get married. Don't say live and let live. I refuse to keep quiet.
There are two things as to what made it unique, or a film that I jumped at the chance to do. The film would be a way to combat homophobia. But it's also true that this film is also very much for a gay and lesbian audience, because the theme about how important it is to be who you are. Ruthie and Connie had the courage, even though, their actions affected people other than themselves. And they are heroines. They are role models.
My name is Connie Kurtz, and I'm a lesbian, and it is my friend that I fell in love with.
It's very important to, I think, to get that message out there that, a person doesn't have to be just like you, to be a person. And I just think that to be able to get that message across with and have so much fun, but that's what I love about Ruthie and Connie, is that they're so much fun, and you laugh and you cry and you identify with them as people, no matter what, no matter who you are.
She's my soulmate. For us, it's Bashert that we have been together to be who we are, as lesbians, as Jewish women, as mothers, as grandmothers, in all the ways that we are, people. It's as if we were on a bicycle built for two, where you don't have to say to the other person, start with your left. We know what to start with.
I love that. That's wonderful.
Ruthie and Connie debuted in June of 2003 on Cinemax.
James Arthur Baldwin is commonly acknowledged to have been one of the most important literary voices of the African-American civil rights era. A proud black gay man and a gifted author, James Baldwin has written many works, including Go Tell It on the Mountain, Another Country, and the internationally celebrated book on homosexual love, Giovanni's Room. I'm Paris Barclay, and you're watching In the Life.
There's an unconventional war brewing within a most conventional bastion of heroism, the United States military. Gay and lesbian Americans in the armed forces have a war story they cannot tell, one of traditional heroes made invisible. Correspondent Daniel Karslake delves into don't ask, don't tell, don't pursue, and what happens when gay and lesbian soldiers are rendered mute for the good of the country they fight and die to protect.
The numbers are growing at an alarming rate. According to the military's own estimates, 3 military personnel are discharged every day because they have allegedly violated the don't ask, don't tell, don't pursue policy. Compared to 1994, that's nearly twice the rate of discharge.
Increasingly, though, it's the military that's being accused of violating its own policy. We spoke to a young man who's currently serving in the military about how violations to the don't ask, don't tell, don't pursue policy have affected his career.
I enlisted to travel and to serve my country. My family background also has somewhat of a military background in itself, and I just wanted to see the world.
John, not his real name, has asked us to keep his identity a secret because by simply agreeing to be interviewed, he could be putting his military career at risk.
I've gone through everything from verbal harassment, taunting, physical altercations almost, pushing. I've also received a death threat.
John called us a while back. He was very concerned.
Stacy Sobel is legal director of the Service Members Legal Defense Network, a group that assists individuals harmed by the don't ask, don't tell, don't pursue policy.
He'd found out that someone had alleged that he was gay. The person had said that John made a statement that he was gay, and he didn't know what to do. He didn't know what his rights were, and he needed some advice. The command did an investigation to try to determine whether he, in fact, was gay, and they decided to keep him in.
Until I was under my first investigation, I was not officially told what the don't ask, don't tell policy was.
There were a number of places where the military strayed from the policy in his case. First of all, he was asked. That's the first thing, don't ask. Other service members were repeatedly asking him if he was gay or not. Additionally, he was pursued. Someone had alleged that he was gay, that he had made a statement, but there was no other evidence.
In July of 1999 at Fort Campbell, Kentucky, Private Barry Winchell was beaten to death with a baseball bat while he slept by a fellow soldier because he believed Winchell was gay.
Private Winchell's murder touched me. When I thought about it and I sat down and I read the news and the articles about it, I started reviewing the problems that I had had in the past, and I wasn't surprised at all. I've been in situations where that same exact thing could have happened to me many a times.
As a result of his murder, the Department of Defense started an Inspector General survey, and that survey went and interviewed about 75,000 service members from all over the world. And what that survey found was that 80% of all service members hear anti-gay speech, and that 85% said it was tolerated to some extent, and those numbers are just unacceptable.
This Department of Defense report also characterized harassment of homosexuals in the military as commonplace, and though it's law that all service members receive training on the policy, an incredible 57% said that they had received none.
I believe people are uncertain what the policy actually means.
Reverend Bernard Wilson, who was not gay, served as a naval chaplain for more than 20 years before retiring in January of 2000.
So when you have an ambiguous policy, it's difficult to train to it because you're uncertain what you're training people to do.
Despite our repeated requests, no one from the Pentagon would agree to be interviewed for this story. We asked sociologist Laura Miller for her take on why some people feel the policy is necessary.
One argument that's been very effective in upholding people's convictions that the don't ask, don't tell policy should remain in place is the argument that unit cohesion will be disrupted if open gays are introduced into the unit.
My response to individuals that say it's a morale or trust or whatever reason it is, to be honest with you, they're full of crap. I've served on, like I said, an area or a command that I was able to see individuals in a non-homophobic environment serve openly. And there was no camaraderie problem, there was no morale problem. As a matter of fact, you know, everybody seemed closer together. Like I said, they were like a family.
Straight men in the military who are worried about gay men in the military are worried that gay men are going to act toward them the way they act toward women. So pursuing, harassment, potentially assault, and they don't want to be in that position.
There's often lifted the concept that having homosexuals serve in such a closely knit environment invites trouble. That has not been my experience in the military. Morale suffers if leadership isn't doing its job, if it isn't taking care of its people. It has nothing to do with whether there are gays serving in those units, and I'm always surprised when they use that reason for not allowing gays to serve in the military.
Studies of soldiers' attitudes before racial integration reflected some of the same strength and opposition to integration. A lot of white soldiers said, I shouldn't have to be in intimate circumstances with blacks. They said differences in the races and problems that the races had getting along would lead to mistrust and discomfort in serving with one another. And a number of people have drawn parallels between the opposition by soldiers now to working with homosexuals and oppositions that happened with race.
When the forces were desegregated in 1948, there needed to be a cultural change. And certainly churches helped by declaring racism a sin. I think that's a place for the religious institutions to step in and say the attitude of our citizens against people who are homosexual or lesbian is wrong, it's a sin, and we ought to take a stand against it.
One thing the ban does, I think, is give soldiers who would have a tendency to act hostily toward gays sort of the, I don't know, wink and nudge to go ahead and do it. And also they have the confidence that gay soldiers aren't going to go complain about how they're being treated, because they know if that person reveals their sexuality, that they'll be dismissed from the military.
There's nowhere to turn to when you're in a hostile environment. You cannot turn to a chaplain, you cannot turn to a doctor, and sometimes you try to turn to a superior, and that superior will turn you in. So, and that starts a whole nother ball of wax right there.
It is very difficult for service members to have to live a lie every single day while they're serving. And it's especially difficult when the services have what they call their core values. And those core values tell service members that they are supposed to conduct themselves with honesty and integrity. And it's the double lives that service members have to lead that often make them contact us.
Why do I remain in the military after my situations and problems? First of all, I'm a fighter, I'm not a quitter. I did not realize that until after a few years of being in the service. And the main and wholeheartedly reason is because I joined the military to serve my country, to be a patriot.
In the best of all possible worlds, the United States military would have United States citizens serving fully in every and any job required to protect our nation. Whether we're gay, straight, lesbian, bisexual, transgendered, whatever. If you're an American citizen, you have the right to serve and die for your country just like anyone else.
If you kicked all the gays and lesbians out of the Navy and the Army and the Air Force, we'd have trouble running the place properly. I think if you're brave enough to sign up for Afghanistan and go over there and get yourself shot, you ought to be proud enough to join the Army and say who you are. It's just ridiculous. I think the United States and Turkey are the only countries in NATO that don't allow people to say who they are. We got a ton of gays and lesbians in the military already. So it's not a matter of whether we're going to let gays and lesbians serve in the military. They serve in the military. It's a matter of whether any human being has a right to be proud of who they are, and I think they do.
And finally, In the Life's own Harvey Fierstein declares war on Uncle Sam.
So what happened was, these words are making me nervous. What happened was, you're in my key light. Well, so far that's not offensive. Come on, Papa, what do you say? As you hear me speaking, I don't know what is going on in your world. You see, I write and then videotape these pieces, then they're edited and put away for airing sometime later. This piece may even be replayed years from my today. Stranger things have happened. Just last night, some cable station played an episode of Murder, She Wrote I did. I thought it was buried and forgotten years back. Anyway, I do not know what the reality outside your door is for the most part. But from where I speak to you, our country is deeply involved in a war. There are bombs falling, people dying, prisoners being taken, the whole horror bouquet war offers. From where I speak, I do not know if the war is over. I don't know the price to human life. I don't know the political effects. I don't know if the war was popular or protested, or if objectives were met or compromised. I don't know who won. I don't know, and I wouldn't even guess. What I will predict, however, is that we have been given no gay or lesbian heroes. I'm willing to step my big fat ass out on a very thin limb to say that there are no parades for the gays and lesbians who fought this war. There are no medals of honor for the gay and lesbian soldiers, sailors, or Marines. There are no ceremonies for the gay and lesbians who died in battle. America is not thanking our community for the ultimate sacrifice we made, protecting this nation with our own flesh and blood. There are no gay or lesbian war heroes. I will go out on that limb with no fear of falling. As you probably know, don't ask, don't tell, don't pursue is the law of the land. Don't ask for your rights. Don't tell anyone who you are. Don't pursue the American dream. Just pay your taxes and die. And when the bodies of our brave men and women are boxed and shipped home, they will be numbered as Americans. All kinds of Americans. Latin Americans, African Americans, Asian Americans. And their communities will mourn them proudly and openly for the world to see. But when we step forward to say, that hero you are honoring was a proud and loving and open homosexual, we will be accused of fouling their memory. They will say that we are using the loss of human life to advance the gay agenda. We will be asked to allow the dead to be remembered as heroes and not perverts. We will be bullied back into silence. It happened after 9/11. It will happen again now. There are no gay war heroes. There will be no gay war heroes. Not until there are gay citizens.
Next month on In the Life, the legacy of AIDS in the 90s. In 1996, protease inhibitors revolutionized both treatment and activism. While in Mexico, an impoverished community struggles for health care. And one positive man whose HIV has transformed his art. All this and more on America's gay and lesbian news magazine, In the Life. I'm Bill Brochtrup. For all of us at In the Life here in New York, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next month.
In the Life is funded in part by the H. Van Ameringen Foundation. Additional support provided by the Ford Foundation, the Gill Foundation, the Pride Foundation, the Mel Heifetz Fund at the Gay and Lesbian Foundation of South Florida, Daniel H. Renberg and Eugene Kabalowski, and the annual support of In the Life members like you.